Alright, everybody, welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live. This is going to be for the week of March 29th, 2020. I am still Josh Blaser, and joining me is indie game developer Sharky. How are you doing?
I am still Sharky, that's for sure.
And we are
I'm doing good.
and we are still stuck inside with the whole pandemic thing going on. Although for us, that's not really too out of the normal here.
Well, for me, inside is like the entire ocean, so
Yeah.
like it's not exactly debilitating in any kind of way because I mean that's kind of generally where I like to stay.
Yep. The rest of the world is just catching up to us now. We were the trendsetters, right?
Yeah, we were the trendsetters, just like we were with that Steam co-op.
Yep.
We were setting the trends and getting no credit for them.
Of course. Somebody will steal the Save the Extreme idea before us. I can see it happening now.
Yeah.
But we got some interesting design topics to discuss this week. In terms of games playing, I played about 70 games, so my mind has too many games in it right now. For you, Shark, what have you been up to, game-related wise?
Well, I finally got, they finally updated a lot of the mods for Oxygen not included, so I've been playing a lot of that. But also I've been playing a new game from somebody that was on our cast not long ago that I absolutely love, and that was Monster Train.
And
Monster
that
Train is very similar to Slay the Spire kind of thing, but so far, I mean, like I'm liking it better than Slay the Spire. Of course, Slay the Spire wasn't my favorite by any means, kind of thing. So I mean that has something to do with it, but like Monster Train is definitely like running on all cylinders kind of thing. Like I think it's going. It still hasn't released yet. It's an early access key. It's a pre-release key. Rather, I don't know if they're going to release it into early access or how they're releasing, but it's a you can go get the key kind of thing. I mean, you can technically go get the key if you go to their website and request a early access key, or the developers.
Yeah.
But other than that, you can't get your hands on the key.
And this is being developed, or I know our guest, Brian Cronin, he's, I think, the designer on that one. And we just spoke to him, I think it was like 2-3 weeks ago, about a programming in video games, kind of doing a series on that. And we are in discussion, Shark and I were talking about this earlier, about maybe having another kind of design series we could do month by month. You want to tell people your idea?
So my idea for the design series is going over. It's a series that will be going over things that a beginner needs to know, kind of thing. It'll be, sort of I guess it'd be almost like a game design course or a game development course, not just a game design course, but a game development course 101, essentially. And we would teach, it would basically be a teachable course over many, many episodes kind of thing, and probably keep them pretty short. I don't know how short, but I'm thinking in the, me and Josh like to talk a lot.
No.
Which Josh isn't losing his voice. And the whole premise would be, probably aiming for, I don't know, 10 to 30 minutes kind of thing. Something reasonably digestible and like have many, many episodes of these. Going over bit by bit over things.
And yeah, it's only some it'll only be something that we can return to again and again. Speaking of which, we're about to enter April, which means I have to get back in touch with Tomo and Silas for their series too. It's going to be very busy. Again, we're supposed to be taking it easy, and it feels like my workload has tripled since this has broken out.
Well, the thing with my my idea is that it's not going to be live. It's going to be a pre-recorded kind of thing. So, it may take us longer than 30 minutes to do it, but it'll be, or 10 minutes or however long the video will be. Actually, I can guarantee you it's going to take longer than whatever the video is going to be.
Of course.
But, because, there's exporting time, there's, all kinds of editing and whatnot. But, we want to keep it, fairly digestible and short.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and again, there will always be some more interesting content for the channel. It's only to separate it from everybody else. Speaking of which, I recorded the footage that I need for my first game design stress test. I decided to choose Undermine for it, and now I just need to record 10. I only have 15 minutes of footage, so the actual video should probably be 8 to 10 minutes long, I think, at most.
Mm-mm.
So that should be interesting. Kind of, again, it's essentially a deep game design dive, focusing entirely on the design mechanics of a game and nothing else. So it's not really a review or a spotlight. It's more of a design critique.
Yeah, it's a criticism.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how that one goes. We'll see. I'm sure somebody will leave me a nasty remark saying this is a horrible review of a game.
Yeah, because it is a review.
Everything is a review.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a view right now, what we're doing.
Yeah, we're reviewing chat right now.
Yep. So, the only really new game I've been playing other than the other 70 is that I got a press key for Jake Burgett's latest game, Ancient Enemy, which is kind of like an RPG meets solitaire kind of game. For those of you who played Shadowhand, it's very much an elevated form of that. I'm really enjoying it. I think we're going to be doing a Let's Play of that on the stream because I kind of issued a challenge to Jake online saying that if I can beat the game on the hardest difficulty before he does any balancing, that I demand he changes the difficulty to Josh difficulty. It should be called Josh mode. He said he won't do it, but maybe if I can do it and we get everyone to say it, maybe we can get that to happen.
Yeah. You said that was the only 2 games, and then you were just talking right before that about the 70 games.
Well, that's the latest one that I played last night. Those 70 are just swirling around in my head. I still have all the footage. I got about I think I got a good 8 hours of footage between what's going to be last week's spotlight and this week's spotlight. I'm going to have to edit down to 20-minute long videos.
Have you ever thought about swapping the spotlight to maybe weekly and just cover pick out of how many you get in a month, you pick a certain number of those and do those during one day a week kind of thing?
Maybe. I still like to do the grab bag when we have the opportunity. There's still so many games to get through.
Oh, is that on the same night?
Yeah. Unless I just pick a dedicated night during the week to cover. That could be something. I think, it's the only problem is that it's not reliable, the number of indie games I get each month. The month before I got, I think, 30. This one I got 20. So, it's kind of hard, it's kind of hard to make, a hard day saying that I will cover 3 indie games every week or something like that.
Well, I would just say, you cover them on this day and see how many you get through, kind of thing, and then, go to the next day and the next day.
Maybe I'll ask on Discord, ask on Twitter what people think about that, whether they prefer one kind of chunk of them during the month or, maybe a weekly kind of play. We'll see. To El Gordo's question, the game was called Hypergalactic Psychic Table Tennis 3000. A very easy name for anyone to find, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely easy.
Mm-hmm. But, in terms of news, that's going to be a little bit tricky. Again, everyone is stuck inside, so it's not exactly there's a lot that is going on here. I know Control just released, or Remedy just released their first expansion for Control. I may Here's the challenge. I may get a press key for it, but it's for the PS4 version. So if I were to play it, I would need to replay the entire game on PS4 before I can actually get to the new content to review it.
Mm.
Because I don't have anything else going on right now.
No, I mean, like, nobody does. I mean, it's the coronavirus. Everybody's just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, this is just. What is it? This is just us relaxing right now?
Yeah, we're just relaxing. We're not working.
Mm-hmm.
And see, the thing you gotta learn about me and Josh is we're relaxing like all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, all the video editing that I'm going to be doing, that's just, that's vacation time for me, right?
Yeah. All the coloring libraries, all the...
Which now I've come to miss it because I've gotten so used to doing it.
Yeah, and you're going to buy your own library.
Yeah, in 10 years I'll own my own library, and then what I can do every day is just call my own library up. Just to get that fix, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Exactly. I thought we're bros. So, I think with that, I'm trying to see if if anything did at least come up on Gamasutra here. Let's see. People are meeting online. Let's see. GameStop's not doing too well.
GameStop decided to, stay open.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're an essential business.
Mm-hmm. Of course they are.
And by essential business, they meant that it was their business to essentially cash in as much as possible off the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything like too shocking. We need to get a hold of Ramin, though. We gotta do another roundtable in April. Hopefully we can find him.
Yeah, hopefully.
They did get him, but I think that was like 2-3 weeks ago. And I heard from Rob he's doing all right. Hopefully we can get him back on now that he's working from home like the rest of us.
One of us.
Yeah. But let's get to our first topic then, and we'll see where things go. So, what do you think? Playtesting or tutorial first? Because the weird thing is that they both kind of infer on one another. So it's not as easy as just saying this will be like the first one.
Huh. I think maybe playtesting first, because we'll talk about playtesting and everything, and then I think that'll feed more into the tutorial than the tutorial will feed into playtesting.
All right.
Because generally, I think in game development, you playtest a lot, and then towards the end you put the tutorial in.
All right. Let's make another tweet update. Let people know. All right. Yeah. So playtesting. This is something that, if there's any, I think, glaring issue that indie developers tend to run into or face, I think a lot of it stems from the problem with playtesting, or getting people to playtest. And for those of you new watching this live or recorded, when we refer to playtesting, we are talking about showing your game to other people, not in a convention or a commercial sense, but having people sit down, play your game, and essentially figure out what they thought of it, what they liked, what they didn't like. And this is something that there's a lot of, I think, hats that have to be worn to do playtesting effectively. You need to be
and we need to make a clarification here that we don't mean throwing your game up on like itch.io and letting people play it there.
Yep,
definitely. Not play.
Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that when you throw your game on itch or Steam or whatever, you're not essentially, I don't know, do we use the term hire here? Would you consider that we are hiring people to play the game?
Yeah, I mean, playtesters are kind of a hired position. I mean, they technically are a hired position, technically,
Mm-hmm.
but by technically, it's a very loose technically because there's many testers, mostly for indie games that don't get paid. Although you still do technically, if you're good, technically pay them with the free with the key to the full game kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's paid with the key kind of thing, with the full key kind of thing, not just the early access key.
Or you can bring your game to like game clubs or local meetings and have them test it out as well. In a that's more of a relaxed atmosphere. That's kind of like the I guess that's kind of like the later side when we talk about playtesting. But
Or taking it to your friends and whatnot. That's generally the first step right there.
mm-hmm.
Taking it to your friends.
Yeah. But what we're really focusing on is having a small group or, well, whatever pool of people you can get to play your game and have them notate or explain to you in detail what they thought of your game. Did they find any bugs? Was anything confusing? Did they get frustrated in any aspect? And like I said a minute ago, there's a lot of disciplines that running or managing playtesting fall into. You need to be, well, one, you need to be open and sociable. You can't just, throw a game at somebody and then they have any issues, say, go F yourself, this game is perfect. That's not how you conduct good playtesting there. You need
I think that's how you conduct no playtesting.
Mm-hmm. You also need to be very notes oriented or planning as well, because you need to be able to organize what people thought of your game. And I spoke again with guest John Brieger about this on several occasions. He's written like multiple things. He's done videos, and he does a lot in terms of setting up playtesting sessions. Yeah, playtests are perfection, exactly.
Yeah.
And for him, like he has his own kind of set of rules that he abides by. Like he has people when they playtest this game to record their play sessions. He's never watching them when they're playing it, and this can be very hard, I think, for a lot of developers, especially first-time developers, to kind of wrap their head around.
Yeah. Recording it isn't necessary, but it is so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like in the end, all you need to do is have them play it and then have them tell you about what they played. The thing is if you're not watching them play it, kind of thing, then you're dependent on them saying anything, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I watched Josh play our game and everything, I definitely took notes of the things he said and everything. But I noticed how he reacted, kind of thing. He didn't say anything. He was just like, or oh man, kind of thing. At like certain parts, or like you would just see the expression on his face change, and it was like, okay, taking a note of that. That's an issue there.
Mm-hmm. And again, when we're talking about this kind of playtesting, all feedback is important. Even if it's good, bad, detailed, very plain, you need to be able to take everything that somebody is commenting on or reacting to and kind of use that going forward. Because like we've said, the chance of you finding a playtester who will be able to leave you a 10-page detailed document to every bug and problem they have with your game is probably not going to happen.
Unless you're paying them a lot of money.
Yeah. But again, for most indie developers, they don't exactly have the extra money for playtesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to do everything you can to maximize what you get out of your playtesters. And again, somebody who says this game is horrible is just as useless as somebody saying, I love this game, there's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly.
And it's important, again, that you have to be willing and accepting of all feedback. because I've seen some YouTuber. I've seen some indie developers on like Facebook or Twitter say, I don't want you to, I don't want anything bad, or like don't tell me, my game is horrible, or I only want feedback that is positive. And no, you have to. You need to have a thick skin when it comes to playtesting, because your consumers aren't going to care how sensitive you are. They care about what they see on a store shelf or a digital store shelf. And
yeah, like only positive feedback would be pretty much worthless, because it's the negative feedback what you want, really. Like, I mean, the positive feedback can occasionally come, help you, but I mean that's far more rare, and like the negative will almost always help you.
Yeah. And like I said, there are developers out there who do not like any criticism whatsoever. You can't ask for praise. I can't ask for praise. All I get is get good from my fan base, right? I still remember, I'm pretty sure I've been blacklisted by Roberta Williams because I said some problems with her Kickstarter game. Like, she never got back to me after I wrote that review about it. Yeah, I think to Janšvik's point, positive feedback does have its help. Like, if people say, I like this, or this part feels good in my hands, that's a sign that you're there. But if the only feedback they're saying is, I think this is the best game ever, I love it, this is awesome, nice job, bro. If that's all you're getting, that leads to that echo chamber effect. And we've seen developers fall prey to that. For those of you who remember, when we played Skyshine's Bedlam, I spoke to the developer about just the complete tonal crash of what his friends and people thought of that game to the consumer. And he was genuinely surprised how much the audience hated that game. Because he was telling me that I showed it at shows and to my friends and everybody liked it, there weren't any problems. And then I played the game, and within 5 minutes, the list of problems started to scroll down in my mind there. And this is, I think, another very important point. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how great of a game developer you are. Most likely, you are not going to be able to spot these issues by yourself. As in, just you playing this game with no other playtesting or feedback, you're going to figure out every problem with your game.
Yeah, because things that things like tutorials and stuff, you already know how to play the game. You made it. It's easy for you to understand how to play it. While for other people it might as well be Japanese and all they can speak is English.
Upside down Japanese. Make it a little harder there. Yep, and another issue, if you only playtest with your hardcore devout fans, you then have the echo chamber effect, because just as you've become accustomed to everything, so have they. So, if they've already figured out all the weird quirks and issues with your game, they're not going to have any problems playing because they know how it works. And this is why you need a very respectable or very sizable sample size when you're playtesting. You want people who have never played your game before, just as you want people who are well accustomed to a genre. Like we said, you want as much feedback as you can so that you have that data to parse through.
Yeah. And back to Janšvik's point, with the positive feedback, I would disagree for most part. Like I'm not saying that positive feedback is bad, because I mean any feedback is good. But the reason why I don't find the positive feedback to be good is because it really doesn't help you. I mean the positive feedback helps you as much as getting no feedback about a thing because it means it's no longer bad, kind of thing. And that's really the point, is that you want to weed the bad things out, kind of thing. I mean, the good feedback, like positive feedback can be, helpful in a few ways, kind of thing, where like they're like, oh, I really like the system. And you're like, okay, well, we can expand the design in this one area here and expand upon that one feature. But if it's not a feature that can be expanded on, the good feedback really, the positive feedback really isn't useful there. I mean, it can help your self-esteem or anything, but if you're riding your self-esteem on playtesting, then you're in very big trouble.
Well, I do think it can help in the way, like, if you're still not sure what your core gameplay loop is, or if you're trying to figure out what people are excited about with your game, I think positive feedback can help in that regard. Like I said, if it's overly positive, if there's nothing people are saying is wrong, or it is just 100% praise with no detail analysis, then yes, that can be an issue. And yeah, I think I said the same thing Janjovic said at the same time. Like, if you remember when we spoke with the developer of this is what happens when you play 70 games in a week. You forget all the names of the games that you've played before.
Well, I don't think you'd want to scrap a feature just because nobody said positive things about it, because otherwise you'll probably scrap your core gameplay loop.
But with the developer of Bombfest, he was talking about how the original version of his game was going to be more of an RPG-focused title, and people responded better to kind of the multiplayer battle arena, so he decided to, focus on that kind of gameplay loop. But
he swapped directions.
Yeah, but as you said, Char, like, if we're like 50-75% done this game and people don't like your core gameplay loop, then the ship has already sank then in that regard.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, playtesting should be done, and I think you can agree with me on this one, it should be done as early as you can. And when you have something that is playable, that doesn't blow up somebody's computer, you want to start doing playtesting, because you want to figure out, does this idea have merit? And like we said a minute ago, this is why just doing it yourself doesn't work. Because, you're going to say, oh, my idea is perfect. I said so myself. That doesn't account for the hundreds, thousands of potential fans out there that are going to play your game. And I know for Char, I'm going to say the word of the day this time. With Project Triad, or that's the second word of the day, you were telling me that when we were playing the game, that was without art. That was kind of at the prototype stage of that game. The core gameplay loop was there. Was it 100% refined? No. Was it, completed? Hell no.
Because Alpha 2, that was just one step above the prototype, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that was 2.1, so it was a step 1.1 steps past the prototype.
Yeah. And just as you were talking, my mouth or my hands are knocking away my microphone thing, so I really do need to get this new mic. But yeah, like you said, this was the game. Hold on, is my sounds being like? Do I sound extra loud right now?
You sound kind of like you should right now.
Okay.
I'm not having problems hearing you anymore.
All right. Well, we'll see how things go. Yeah, because now it seems like it's showing my mic as being like extra loud. But let's see. Yeah. 1 second here.
But right. Yeah, I mean, like on Triad, and it was right. Like we had a bit of testing in at that point, but not a lot. Like that was we had 2 testing sections. We had our initial testing section, which was of the prototype. We had our second testing session, which was the second alpha, and then you played a completely untested version, Alpha 2.1.
Yep. So, to that point, that in that version of the game, now my voice is dying. Everything is messing up at the same time.
Uh-oh, your mic is roboting.
Oh. That's weird. 1 second. Let me see. I'm going to try switching it. Or, hold on. Alright, I just unplugged and plugged it back in.
That might be my internet, not your mic.
Everything is going bad at the same time here. But, while I'm going to lower my mic just a little bit there. Maybe that will help. Okay. Like I said, from that version of playing Project Triad, we were enjoying it. We were liking what we were playing. Sans art, sans playability, sans any kind of, quality of life or major elements of that game. And that is a great sign. And if people can enjoy your game, or your playtesters are enjoying your game at that state, then you've kind of won half the battle.
Yeah. Like, one really good sign I seen, that really, sold me on it is when we were, doing the original alpha test and everything, the prototyping test. And we, I took it in there to my testers who were, quite burned out and didn't want to test at all. And I had to, really kind of push them into testing kind of thing. And I was able to get, I think 5, 6 of them in there kind of thing. And then, I was like, it'll be real quick, just come in here. We'll play maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. I just need to find out what this game has potential for. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got them in there and everything. 6 hours later, they're still playing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I asked them to, but because they want to play it. And then the very next day, they come up to me and they're like, a couple of them came up to me and be like, can we play more? I was like, the servers aren't up right now. Sorry. We'll do it next dev chat on a better version of the game. But I was blown away with the results of how they wanted to play it. Knowing that I knew, knowing what I know about the art and everything, and how visually appealing, is important and everything. And I knew that, okay, if they can spend 20 minutes with this game in the place that it's in, and they enjoy that 20 minutes, then we're probably in good shape. And then they did 6 hours. I was like, oh snap.
Mm-hmm. And again, if you waited, and this is another big point, the earlier that you can play test your game, it allows you to figure out what the potential pain points and what are the positive elements of your game as early as possible. Like we said, you should not be waiting until 50% of your game or your game's in beta before you let anyone else see your title. That usually ends in failure, or at least people not giving your game the time of day.
Yeah. You want to test early and test often. If you and testing, because the importance of testing is also the importance of giving up your project, because if your project isn't fun kind of thing, it might be worth giving it another try or two kind of thing, tweaking stuff based on feedback. But if it isn't fun in a certain amount of time, and you'll have to use your own judgment on that, then you're probably best off scrapping it kind of thing.
And I think, again, there's probably a topic there about when do you just let an idea die. And that is something no developer really wants to talk about. But like we've said, if everybody you've shown your game to hates it or they're not enjoying it, you you can't exactly force a square peg through a round hole at that point. Something needs to change.
Yeah, and I think the issue with having to scrap a game is much less when you have a really good designer on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a really good designer on your team, I mean, they're already going to know that it works pretty much from the start, from what's on paper before you even do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to know how good it's going to be, or that it'll be perfect or anything, but they will basically know that it'll be workable because they've already seen it work on pen and paper kind of thing.
But what is a game designer?
That would be another topic.
That would be a 5-hour topic, I think.
Yeah.
And yep, as to Janšvik's point, as we said, that you want to get as big of a sample size as you can. You want people who have never played your game or never even played the genre, just as you want the hardcore super elite and everybody in between. Because you need those three groups. And I think this is very important to break down why. You want new people to play your game because you want to see what playability issues they're finding. Again, somebody who's never played a platformer before will have no idea that double jump exists. Just as they'll never know that you can press down and A to, jump down a platform in a lot of games. If you remember from that game we played last night, the Stella, that puzzle platformer, the game assumed that I knew that you could hold away from a wall and press jump to leap off that wall. And
yeah.
that is a playability issue right there. Because if I played only Mario or more arcade style platformers and Stella was my first game, I would have never have known that was a mechanic in it. And this is why you need new people. Because if something is hard or they're not understanding it, making something clearer or improving your playability will help everybody. Now,
yeah. Yep. And, kind of beating off of both your points. So number one, playtesters are generally hard to get. Good playtesters kind of thing. Like, mm-hmm. I know that, like, I recruited, I don't know, over time, probably about, I don't know, 30, 40 people kind of thing. And gave them, some of them I didn't even get to the point where, give them a key kind of thing before they bowed out kind of thing. Others gave them keys. They gave me no feedback. They either didn't play the game or didn't tell me they played the game or whatever. And like a few months. And, it took me a long, it was over a long period of time before I was even able to get like 6 or 7 people total kind of thing. And those 6 or 7 people total were like in and out, like they were testing every version. Matter of fact, a lot of them had already gotten burned out and everything because I had tested improperly, because you want to put in testing tools in there and such to let the players basically cheat in a lot of the ways, because like you want them to be able to cheat so they can actually fully kind of test out your systems. And then you want to also have them occasionally do a non-cheating run, mm-hmm. to where they play it legitimately and make sure there's no problems, without cheating kind of thing. Like, mm-hmm. All of a sudden there's a difficulty spike here kind of thing. Yeah. Or, this place is like, to get past this place, I have to grind and grind and grind and grind forever kind of thing. Or any kind of issues like that. But you want to give them a cheat menu, to help them with testing, generally mm-hmm. at first, I mean, that's not applicable to all games, but it's applicable to a lot of games. Like, I mean, it's not really applicable to my current game, Project Triad, the second word of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But, it is at the same time, because what we can do is just unlock all the cards for them, kind of thing. They don't got to earn the cards. They're just unlocked, and they can build whatever decks they want, kind of thing.
Yeah. And when you start...
The other point I was going to say is that on that, you have, you have the limited people, but, like Josh said, you want to have both experienced people and inexperienced people, and people, people in between are less important, but they're still important, kind of thing. But it's best to have both ends of the spectrum, kind of thing, because like, you want the pro player to absolutely love your game because you want to appeal to your main audience, but at the same time, if you can get the game to appeal to somebody who's not a part of your audience, kind of thing, and make it where they actually enjoy it and would become part of your audience, you just expanded your reach of your game.
Mm-hmm.
And the other point is that when you're testing and everything, you want to bring in fresh eyes, because like, like Josh said earlier, is when people play test and everything, they get used to all the quirks and features, of the thing, of the game and everything. And you want to bring in fresh eyes every once in a while.
Yep.
You especially want to bring in fresh eyes and more professional eyes at the end, kind of thing. You want to bring in people that you actually really know, like game development, game design, and stuff like that. Really have like really good opinions in your beta. Which beta is after all your features are implied. And beta is just your final, bug testing, finding any kind of issues that arise. Polishing. Adding in awesome animations, that kind of thing. That's your beta kind of thing. You want to have like all your gameplay features in at that point, so they're just testing. They're testing your game as a whole, just not like complete.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And to Ogoro's comment about like cheat menu and dev builds, you can have more specialized or focused playtesting sessions. That's kind of more, I think, on the advanced side. Like, let's say you want to test how, let's say, stealth elements in your game work. So you could issue a build, excuse me, that is just, the stealth levels. You just want to see how this element applies. But again, that is definitely more on the advanced side. That's basically, once you've gotten everything, all the major elements done, now you're just trying to drill down the specific parts of your design loop.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily, all that complicated. I mean, all you got to do is give them, basically a level skip kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell them, hey, we want to test out this level, this level, this level, specifically the stealth, and see what you guys think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that kind of testing can be very useful, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then to get back to the point about why you need a large sample or a varied sample, the reason why you do want knowledgeable and expert players to play your game is that you want to see what the fans of the genre think of your game. If you're building a first-person shooter and you show it to hardcore FPS fans and they hate it, there may be a problem somewhere there. And
a little bit.
Like we said, it's always about building as much or as large of a sample size as you can. Because just because they may hate it, you may have casual people who really love it. And then you're going to be forced in that decision as to, what is this game going to be about? And like we've said time and time again, you do not want to wait 3, 4, 5 years in a development game to ask yourself, who's going to play my video game?
Yeah. And I know that, like, I know when we were testing the original word of the day, Chromasia, is that I got, when they tested it and for balance and everything, like I had my hardcore players telling me it was too easy, and I had my newbie players telling me it was too hard. I was like, then it might be just right.
Mm-hmm. And Algora made a really good point there as well. That the other reason why you want hardcore people, especially if your game is systems heavy, is that they will break it. They will figure out every little, fault or bug or gameplay imbalance in your game, and they will try and destroy your title. And that's good, because they will figure out all the advanced elements of your design that the only way you would ever figure that out is if you just stopped developing your game and played it for, 20 hours a day kind of thing.
At least if they point those things out.
Yeah.
But they may not point those things out because they want to keep it for themselves.
And this is why you also, again, need to make sure or have some, a quality control in terms of your playtesters, especially if it is a multiplayer game. I guess here's a question for you, Shar. I know this is probably something you're thinking of with Project Triad. For your playtesting or for any kind of testing you're going to be doing, what kind of, sample group are you going to be looking into? Because, again, Project Triad is going to be a multiplayer, competitive focused game. So you do have that risk of having your expert players saying, oh, leave this exploit in, or not report something because they want to make use of it for when the game goes live.
Yeah, well, I got a multi-phase plan here, because it's a very different game than Chromasia was.
Mm-hmm.
So, my first phase is that I'm doing basically public testing, essentially.
Yep.
Meaning that anybody that joins our Discord, when we have a playable version, anyway, we haven't had a playable version for the last, 3-4 months, and hopefully we will in another month, maybe this month, but, probably not. But, when we have a playable version, when we have our monthly dev chats, we play it kind of thing. Although, like I said, we haven't done that in several months because we haven't had a playable version. But I bring people, all the people I can to the dev chats and everything, because I can't see them playing or anything, but I can hear them playing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I can hear them talking back and forth to each other, and I can, we can also monitor things and everything while they're playing, kind of thing. So I get a lot of feedback that way, and also I'm there live to hear them, which would be kind of I don't know, I could listen to your stream. You could, if I let you play the game and everything,
mm-hmm.
and I just, turned off my monitor or whatever, but left my speakers on and just, listen to what you say, there's still, so much I can learn feedback-wise from that. So, that's the initial phase right there. The next phase is that, some point before launch, I don't know how long it'll be, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. I don't know what it'll be, but I'm going to have a bunch of streamers lined up in theory. And these streamers will be streaming the game, and they'll be playing it, before it released. And I'm going to have them do giveaway keys to the early access version. And the early access version will be, very, very different. There will be no purchases in there. They'll get, I think pretty much all the cards from the get-go, pretty much. But they won't get all the copies of every card, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll definitely get all the cards. At least I think they will. And, and let them play it, and, use the marketplace that, buy, sell, and everything to try to get a baseline price in there, for supply and demand kind of thing. And, let them play and exploit whatever they can, and we're sitting there monitoring all the results and everything. And changing anything that we need to change, kind of thing. At the same time, listen to the feedback and everything, because also the other thing is we're going to have those streamers that we're giving away the keys, saying that, hey, if you didn't win a key, guess what? You can go join the Nexus Game server, Discord server,
mm-hmm.
and as long as you're a member there, you'll have access to a free version of the game and be able to play it right now. Same version that people that won the key did.
Mm-hmm.
And, that brings more people in, which will bring more people also to the dev chats, which will also bring in more feedback and everything. Easier feedback, better feedback, because you get better feedback, the closer you can get to the consumer kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else major to talk about with playtesting. I guess here's a question for you. Do you think playtesting ends after launch for a game?
Well, I mean, pretty much, but it depends, as usual kind of thing. It's not a black and white answer. I mean, like, if the game is done and it may get some patches or whatever, based off of feedback that you get off of reviews and comments and forum posts and whatnot, which is basically playtesting, but it's not technically playtesting kind of thing. Playtesting ended, but like it's kind of still going at the same time because it's not technically playtesting. It's your consumers, talking about what they like and don't like kind of thing, and you responding to that.
Mm-hmm.
Where like if you're going to do early access, that in itself is essentially playtesting that you charge for, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be actual playtesting there. If for some reason you're going to something, crazy and go to, 2.0 or 3.0, 8.0 or whatever instead of just 1.0, then obviously there's still playtesting in there kind of thing that you charge for because you already sold your game at 1.0.
Mm-hmm.
But, very much like the early access kind of thing. But, like, in general, if your game is finished, it's not, your playtesting is done kind of thing. But, I mean, the same thing as playtesting is still happening, which is people are leaving reviews.
They're commenting on issues.
Commenting on issues, yeah. Giving all kinds of feedback and everything about what they like and what they don't like. Or just saying this is great or this is crap,
Mm-hmm.
So like the feedback is still there. It's still basically the same thing, but it's not technically, playtesting. So like yes and no.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what you just said about early access, I think this is going to be my final point, and then I'll throw it over to you about playtesting for this topic. That there are developers out there who see early access and playtesting as one and the same. That, I'm going to wait until early access before I show my game off to people. And there are some major risks involved. The big one is very obvious. Early access requires people to buy into your game. Playtesting, you are, handing or you're giving these keys out personally to people to get them to play your game. And there are issues with developers who try to rely on early access, and guess what? Nobody buys the game because they don't like how it looks because nobody playtested the game to begin with. And now the developer is basically screwed from both sides of the field.
Yeah. Early access is definitely not the first playtest. If it is, then you're doomed.
Yeah. Yeah, when we see a game go on early access, we expect some measure of quality control has already been done on that. You're not waiting, just as we've said, you don't want your very first prototype to be on early access. You don't want the version of your game that has seen no playtesting, no kind of, peer review done on it to be on early access with a price tag associated to it.
Yeah. That's a price tag of death right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, even if you have had testing and everything, you don't want to release a game onto Steam or whatever platform for a price, even if it has been play tested, but it's not, the development isn't far enough. I mean, like,
yep,
we don't, even though like the 2.1 was, had been play tested like 2 times and you played it, kind of 2.5 times, and then we got the 3.0, which I don't think you ever played.
No.
But like several people did. We wouldn't have wanted, if we released 3.0 onto a storefront, that'd have been game over. Some people would have enjoyed the game, but those people could never find a match because nobody else would play against them. But let's just assume that a single player, you would have like 3 or 4 people, enjoying the game, and everybody else just absolutely hating on the game for not being being incomplete, being low quality art wise, for all these issues kind of thing, and they would absolutely rail on the game, and they would never come back. You could do 5 billion updates and turn it into the final game and everything, and those original people will never come back. And because those original people will never come back, Steam will never actually recommend you because they buried you deep in the algorithm because you're not getting people in. So, even if you release a game too early, you just killed it. Mm-hmm. You just killed it because like nobody's going to play this. And mind you that I'm especially pointing this towards Morpheus because he's actually thinking about doing that exact thing. And I'm telling him not to, because that will absolutely kill his game if he does. And like he's got something solid, just like Project Triad was solid, in Alpha 2.1, but like his is not as solid as mine was in 2.1, and mine was way not solid enough in 2.1 to even dream about going out onto Steam or any other platform because it would die. It would die, bullet straight to the temple is gone. It's you need it to be at least somewhat polished, very, very feature rich. It doesn't have to be finished because it is early access kind of thing. But like, let's think if you're considering the full game at like 3 years of development kind of thing, then you probably better be 2 years into development and testing and everything before you put it out on early access kind of thing.
Yep.
Do not release a game that is half finished, a quarter finished, or anything else. It should be 3/4 or more finished.
And to that point, this is again why Clay Entertainment has worked so well. They're one of the best developers who have used early access for their games because they wait very far into development before their games go on early access. And
oh yeah. Like, you could view a lot of their games that came out on early access as being complete games kind of thing. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, it's getting more.
It's getting better. It's already a great game. And now we get to see it get even better because it's going to get more consumer and overall playtesting done. They've done it, I think, since Don't Starve. They follow that trend. Like, when you play a game, when you play an early access game from Clay Entertainment, day one, it's already going to be a great game. It is already feature complete. It's going to get more feature complete. Yeah, this is like it was Slay the Spire. When I played the very first version of that game on early access, it was already a game that I enjoyed. It already received feedback and playtesting. And again, if we're not careful, this may just segue into an early access chat.
Yeah. But like, it has to be great. It has to be really, really good when you release it. Which means anything half finished is most likely not going to be really, really good. And mind you, when we say really, really good, we mean both gameplay wise and appearance. Because appearance is so important in today's market. Yep. You got to be graphically appealing.
Yep.
Let's see here. Is there anything else we're missing on playtesting?
I think we go too far, we'll get into tutorials. And again, we could easily segue into early access, which would be its own topic in of itself.
Yeah.
I think let's move on. We'll do a quick weird games, and then we'll talk a little bit more about tutorials, and then we'll be done probably, hopefully, in the next 40 to 45 minutes. Again, we never know.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Somebody just sent me a message about possibly playing World War Z with them, too. I know, I'll play World War Z while talking tutorials, while talking to Shark. It'll be perfect. Just do all the multitasking at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Alright, let me see if I get this up, because OBS updated how their screen capture works, and it's gotten worse. So, we'll see if it actually shows everything. And hopefully we won't see that game from last week.
Oh, you mean the one that starts with a B?
Mm-hmm. Alright, let's see if this actually will work.
You need to play that one live on stream.
Oh, yes. How about like around 2 o'clock in the afternoon when all the kids are home?
Well, make it 3:30 so that we can ensure the kids are the younger kids are home.
Alright. What are you... There we go. Let's see if it will work. Alright, is it actually doing it? Okay, yeah. That works. Alright, so let's see what we got. Pangean?
Let me see if I can, if my internet will let me raise up the quality so I can actually see what you're doing, because right now it's just a blur.
Well, this game is a old, like, blurry texture, so that may not be helping.
I just upgraded. I was on one. Let's just say the font was all a blur.
Yeah, and YouTube is lowering their the quality for everyone.
Yeah, because that'll make the platform better.
There we go. My hole is a mouth of dirt. That's a really great name. Oh, a game called Stealthscape. That's the game for me, right?
Yeah. Maybe if it was, maybe what they need to do is call it Stealthscape with bouncing, homing projectiles.
Well, I see bullets, so that's a good sign. Level editor. 130 stages. Doesn't look horrible. But it looks kind of generic, I think.
Exactly.
Cyborg Arena UE4. Plunker.
Exactly, El Gordo.
Snake Core? Okay. So you have the people, so it's Snake, but you fight enemies. That could be interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept.
That Skyracket was a really good example of kind of elevating their design.
Are you talking about the Pong game?
Yeah. Abacus Finch. Okay, I was not expecting that.
Which, that game will definitely be part of that new series we do.
Classic platformer with math. Huh. So it's a platformer math quiz. Probably a little too... if I play that on stream and fail, I will never hear the end of it.
You gotta get a key to it to play it.
Mess up basic math skill online. That would be perfect.
You gotta request a key. Go back, request a key.
Fine. But then they'll start wondering, why is this old guy wanting to play a math platformer?
They're probably going to wonder why anybody wants to play it. But any streamer.
I think we looked at this one last week. Fates of Ort.
Or YouTuber. They'll be
5 plus 5 is 12.
There you go.
Up there's Mountain Blade. I know Thorn is very excited about that.
if you have 3 platforms and one of them goes away, what do you got?
A death pit.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Don Juan of the Galaxy. I'm afraid to click on that one. Curious Expeditions going to the consoles. Master of Dodging. Dead Road. Destructivator 2. Okay. Looks kind of like Lode Runner. The studio's called Pug Fugly Games. I'll give them points for a creative studio name.
Yeah.
The Complex, but it's AO. I don't know. Do I dare click on that one?
I can't see it yet. Oh, now it's it. Maybe.
Alright. I'm going to do a... 1 second. Let's do a quick test here.
Opening another tab. Another window.
Wait, it's a live action cinematic adventure. Why is that rated AO?
Maybe because they went really cinematic.
Ooh, it measures your personality. Written by the person who does The Handmaid's Tale. I don't know any of these people. Oh, good. There's guest acting performance by a live streamer and presenter. Wait, why can't I do that?
It could be AO because they couldn't afford to actually get a real rating, and you can get. I think you can get an AO rating without going to approval.
I still want Diavecchi to put me in one of their murder mystery games. Let me just be corpse number 4. I don't even want the top billing. I'll just be a random body on the ground. Treachery
Josh, a random body on the ground.
in Beatdown City. What? Dozens of attacks. Chipping of Isaac.
Not exactly visually appealing.
Yeah. Again, if your pixel game looks worse than NES games that we've played, that's not a good sign.
Oh, I mean, so, you can't count like LGN games and such.
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, that looks like LGN kind of thing.
Why is this a strategy game and an RPG?
It's a strategy and RPG of beating people, beat them up.
Okay. Adventure Field 3. Spellpunk.
Witchcraftery, that looks like it could be interesting.
Let's see.
It was the last one on the page before.
Magic. Cute gameplay. Giant owls.
So it's like Ori. Cute gameplay and giant owls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why not? Sometimes I wonder if I'm like the only one who requests keys for some of these games.
Very likely. And then hardly anybody requests a key for mine. Oh, that's good.
Giant problem. Stacks on stacks on stacks.
On stacks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, jeez. Yeah, we're not clicking on that one.
What about innocent, brother? Innocent Philly. I read that wrong.
Oh, god, now Shark. This is why the channel gets demodded. Because of Shark's misreading here.
Well, you're scrolling so fast, it like blur and everything.
Oh, yeah, the Abobo game. War Room? Whoa. Sure, okay. So all the correct animations are handmade from plasticine. Kind of looks like Helix a little bit. Playmate style puzzle.
Yeah.
That could be nightmare-inducing for the stream. We'll play that at the very end so we can all go to sleep with this image in our heads.
Yeah, exactly.
Mad Cat's World. Freddy Spaghetti.
Freddy Spaghetti.
Hades Ultimate Fighting Ball.
Hey, it's a tank game. There's probably tank controls in there.
Spelunking the Mind Match. I bet it's a Match 3 game. Lone Castle. I'll start pushing back anyways. Looks like a very basic tower defense. Alright, 2 more pages and then we'll get back. Let's cook together. Legend Creatures. Dogs of Wall Street.
Wonder what MetaWare High School was. So there's demo in it. Dogs of Wall Street.
They don't have any eyes.
No, they don't. Is it just a visual novel?
It's looking like it.
Go up and look at the tags.
Oh, it says visual novel. I'm guessing it's a strategy game too. No, it's free to play indie. Okay.
It says it was a visual novel in the description. Yeah.
Hentai Girls Mosaic Puzzles. Good.
Yeah. You need to request a game for that.
About Strip Card Duel.
I mean, like, I may put that into Project Ride.
Oh, good. We'll play that on stream.
Yeah.
The Innkeeper.
Uniform Girl. No, that's got RPG Maker written all over it.
And look, there's Resident Evil 3. The actual version of Resident Evil 3.
The real version? And you haven't requested a key yet?
I did it through their site, through Capcom.
Well, do both ways. You're
we'll
twice
see.
as likely to get one.
I'll be twice as likely to get no. I'll get a double no.
Better than a single no.
Ulfgrim? What the hell is this? 100 floors of roguelike card game mayhem. Relax with depth. Relax with depth.
That sounds very relaxing for you, Josh.
Yeah. Well, good.
It's not very relaxing for me and those people, but for you, it sounds very relaxing.
Oh, why not? Get all the deck building roguelikes, right?
Yeah.
I'll be drowning in digital cards.
Although, you really got to get Monster Train. So good.
Convoy's
I knew you can get a key to that one.
What? I'm afraid to click on this one.
Convoy?
Yeah, it was going to consoles, so it was on PC, obviously, for a very long time.
Yeah. I didn't play it all the way through, for a while, but, I found it interesting for a short time, and then not after that.
My Cute Furrer. Yeah, let's look at that one.
Yeah. I think you're about 2 pages past where you said you were going to quit.
Yeah. It's like potato chips. You can't just eat one, right? Alright. Yeah, so nothing really standing out this week. We already knew about Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Alright. So, let's get to our final topic then. And again, this is one that we've touched on many times before. And we'll probably come back to this one again and again and again.
Because it's not important at all. That's the reason why we're covering it only 500 times.
Yeah. But we played a game last night on the Indie Spotlight that was terrible in terms of its tutorial. It did everything kind of wrong. Like, if we had that spectrum of, on the great side, the Plants vs. Zombies tutorial, this game would be, 10 miles to the opposite side of it. And tutorial design, again, this is multifaceted times a billion in terms of what we can talk about. And it's very hard, I feel, for a lot of developers to kind of wrap their heads around making a good tutorial, especially if you're making use of... There's basically two sides of this. You have tutorials for established genres, first-person shooters, RPGs, platformers. And then you have tutorials for esoteric or unique games. So making a tutorial for... I guess like anything from something like Disco Elysium... will we consider a Dark Souls or a Souls-like a unique game at this point in terms of its design loop?
And it's a different genre.
Yeah.
Just a Souls genre.
But like or games that feature unique elements. So let's say you're making a Souls-like, but you're also going to have city building elements. Or here's something in the Atelier games, the whole alchemy system. That, yes, it is a turn-based RPG, but then you have a unique subsystem on next to that, or involved with it as well. And this is, I think, where you have to be really careful with tutorial designs. Because no matter what, like we've said, every game is potentially somebody's first. And you don't want to throw somebody away or push them away before they've even started playing it.
Yep. And the thing is every game, what makes a good tutorial is different. So, like, even if there's another, say you're making a tower defense game and there's 50 other tower defense games. Well, your tutorial is going to be different than all those 50 games unless you're just copying them and, just cloning a game kind of thing. And if you just copy their tutorial, you're going to be in bad shape. You need to make a tutorial that is right for your game specifically. And not just a general one over the genre kind of thing. And, tutorial, really, like, dips into a few different areas. One place where tutorial design really comes into place is the UI design. Because... when you're making your tutorials and whatnot, when you're designing everything, you're, if you simplify your UI kind of thing in a good way kind of thing, not a bad way. I mean, you simplify it in a bad way too. But if you simplify it in a good way, it can make it easier to teach people kind of thing. If you simplify it in a bad way, it'll make it harder to teach people how to play.
Yeah.
And harder for people to play in general, even after they know how to play it.
Yeah. So,
like, UI design is very important in there. And I want to bring up a very specific example of the word of the day. With Chromasia, what we did is we did very much modify the entire UI. Because, we have, like, basically all the, mechanics and everything of Gaia game, but like for the most part, a few things that we didn't put in there, like the item world and stuff. But like, we have a lot of the same mechanics as them and everything. And they're the most complicated tactical RPG pretty much out there, and they have massive tutorials and take a long time to learn. And like the complaint that I've seen everywhere about people getting into tactical RPGs was that they were so hard to learn. So one of my focuses anyway, was to make the game easy to learn, And it's like, how can we make this easier to learn? How can we simplify this and make this easier to learn without getting rid of any of the complexity?
Yeah, and that's... I also want to chime in there. That's another very important point. that when you're designing a tutorial, you you have to make sure that the player understands what the gameplay loop is. Because another issue is if your tutorial is too simplistic or doesn't go into enough depth, then you're just basically throwing the player to the wolves. And I've seen a lot of 4X and grand strategy games where the tutorial is so heavily curated that the player has no real input on what's going on. Then they start the real game, and that tutorial covered nothing about what it's like to play the game.
Yeah. But, one thing we did was we really simplified the UI kind of thing. Like, we thought about it, like, move or attack and special are really the same thing, They're just, one uses mana, the other one doesn't. And they both open up a submenu. So what if we combine the two into one and just have one submenu? I mean, that gets rid of a whole entire submenu, as well as a button on the main UI kind of thing, blowing it down kind of thing. And then what if we could get rid of the move button? Because anybody who wants to attack pretty much wants to move kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't, you can just move to right where you are, and everything. Just trigger the move button every time you do the attack. But what if people want to defend? They're going to need a move button for that. Well, just have that trigger when you'll have move trigger when they hit the defend button too. So now we've turned all those buttons down to two buttons. Mm-hmm. Kind of thing. Attack, defend with one submenu. And doing that made it so much easier to teach a game and everything, because like when you give a player the choices between move, attack, defend, this, that, and the other kind of thing, they're like, what do I want to do kind of thing. They're in decision lock kind of thing, unless they actually familiar with the game. But when you give them a choice between attack and defense, it's like, oh, well, I want to attack, obviously, kind of thing. And then they go out and attack. Oh, crap, I'm in trouble. I want to defend, obviously. So, go into defend. And it becomes, intuitive. You know what I mean? An intuitive UI is part of good tutorial design because, if you're designing the tutorial and your UI is not intuitive, you'll go back in your tutorial and you'll have the UI redesigned to a point where it is more intuitive to learn. Mm-hmm. Because that's part of making the tutorial.
Yep. And like we've said, when you're trying to develop a tutorial for a game, there's a lot that really goes into making a good one. And I always like to go, once again, back to the Plants vs. Zombies example. That with George, I almost forgot his name, with George Fan, when he redid his tutorial multiple times. And like you said, Shark, that tutorial and kind of the UI almost go hand in hand. If people are having trouble learning something, you can change the UI or make it more streamlined in order to help them. And ultimately, you want your tutorial, I think this goes to be say the extreme, it's got to be as simple as you can, but it must go into as much detail as you can as well.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is simplify your UI to the point where you bury things and you have to go through this menu to 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 access the one thing that you wanted. Mm-hmm.
And like we've said, and when you're trying to make these tutorials work, you have to, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, you have to present the information in a way that cuts out any BS, anything that's confusing. From the game that we played last night on stream, that I load up the tutorial and I have to spend 30 seconds of annoyingly, hard attempt trying to make witty dialogue before it says, "Oh, press F and A to move your ship." No, you don't do that. Not only that, but I was reading like 5 paragraphs worth of text for each dialogue box.
Yeah, just to get the next hand-holdy part.
Press
And
left click to shoot.
and hand-holding is not needed.
Mm-hmm.
Hand-holding is not needed or wanted, kind of thing. You can teach even the newest players how to play without hand-holding thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like and you can do it with story kind of thing. I mean, we did it, like some of our tutorials are in the story, and in again, Chromasia kind of thing, our word of the day. That is really the word of the day today, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we did was, like, during the first cutscene, I had story between Rocky and rest of them, and Rocky was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go beat them all," and they're like, "No, you should probably pay attention to type advantage. You should, Rock should fight, Scissors kind of thing, because Rock beats Scissors." It's like, well, I could have took them all anyway, kind of thing. Like, it's a joke, it's story, and it's tutorial all rolled into one. But if you're going to do that, it has to be interesting, because if you lose a player's interest, then you lose the player's tutorial, because they're not going to pay attention to it.
Yep. And on the flip side, if it's so wordy and so, like we said, like a minute of dialogue before you get to the actual gameplay information, the player is going to, their eyes are going to start to glaze over, and they're not going to be following along.
Yeah. We keep our cutscenes generally pretty short, for the most part, and especially ones that have tutorials in it. And I don't overwhelm the player, because the player can only learn so many things at one time.
Yep.
And there's so many different ways to teach a player. Like, one thing I noticed that will be in the remake, was not in the original, was a lot of people did not figure out how to actually move the screen and everything. And even though there was controls for it down in the corner and everything, and they could see those, they weren't acted upon the UI that was sit there displayed for them in the corner.
Yeah, and so, that's another big point, that how the player or how somebody is viewing your game is very important. Because you've seen me do this in a lot of games I play, where I am focusing on the main screen, and there's important information in the bottom left, or it's like buried like at the bottom of the screen, that I'm not paying attention to because I'm trying to play your game. And
yeah,
this is another big issue when it comes to tutorials and kind of that onboarding process. If something is important in the way of playing your game, you gotta tell the player about it. Again, going back to the Stella example from earlier, if I didn't know adventure platforming, I would have never been able to figure that out, because there is no point in the game that even explains to me that that is an option or a viable mechanic.
Yeah. I find that getting a player to do it by accident, or like, on purpose kind of thing, is the best way to teach them. So, like, another issue we have is that a lot of people didn't know that you could hover over an enemy and see their stats and everything. So the way I'm going to fix both of those problems at the same time is, on the first map, instead of scrolling back to your characters and everything, I'm going to leave the mouse cursor on the enemies and make you figure out how to scroll over, and the way I'm going to do that is, I'm going to, number one, put the mouse cursor right behind an enemy kind of thing. So the instant you start scrolling kind of thing, you hover over the enemy and stats pop up, and you're like, oh, stats are there. And at the same time, I'm going to put a glow on the side of the screen, or an arrow or something pointing in the direction that you need to go, so that naturally you're going to be like, oh, I need to go this way. You run over the enemy, you find out you can discover their stats, and then you scroll over, and then you find out how to move the screen. And there's like 5 different ways you can move the screen, and whichever way is most natural to you is the one that you'll be doing first.
Yeah, and I think this is another very interesting point, because as you said, like, you don't need a lot to make a good tutorial. And this goes back to something that I've said before. the simplest stuff in your game is often the most complicated to implement as a developer. Like I said, with George Fan Plants vs. Zombies, that tutorial covers everything you need to know to play the game, and it's told both implicitly and explicitly by what you're doing. And it took him months of iteration and multiple versions of that game to get it to that point. And ultimately, I think the goal, or the kind of like high level tutorial design, is that the player almost is tricked into thinking that there is no tutorial because it's so seamless.
But yeah, that is the best tutorials. And, most people didn't even think there was a tutorial in Chromation.
Really?
I was like, there actually is. And I've streamlined it as much as possible so that you wouldn't notice it. But, there's some things that were definitely noticeable, like the level scaling kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't find any other way to do that. But, I tried to make it as streamlined as possible. And, and I think that's absolutely key. And it's very much a thankless job after you do it, too, sadly.
Yeah. And that's another really big point there, that if the game system is essentially, I guess, quote-unquote, one-off, that is unique to your game, or it's something that is not seen in other examples of the genre, then sometimes you do have to kind of break character or break, the fourth wall and explain that to somebody. Because, again, for action or player-focused games, it's very easy to do organic tutorial design. We've spoken many times, and other developers have, about the first level in Super Mario Bros. That is essentially a tutorial. It's a very organic tutorial, but it runs you through all the major elements of the core gameplay loop. And you can do that in a platformer. Now, try making an organic tutorial for Stellaris or Europa Universalis. It's not really going to go over that well because so much of the game is about these systems interacting with each other, and you can't really organically display that.
Yeah. And another big one is you don't want to, I said this before, but I didn't go into detail. You don't want to overwhelm them, and you can overwhelm the player in two different ways. Number one, you put too much information on the screen at once. You need to give them bite-sized, 2-3 sentences of text, generally. A paragraph at the most, kind of thing. You don't want to give them any kind of more text than that. You want something bite-sized that they can remember. And then there's, I forget what it's called, but it's basically the rule of threes, essentially. If you teach them more than 3 things at a time, and generally you want to teach them less than that at one time, but if you teach them more than 3 things at a time, they are not going to remember any of those things.
Yeah. And again, the more dialogue,
as few things as possible.
I remember George said this, you want to keep it to maybe 8 words at the max for any tutorial explanation. And even any tooltip as well. You need to be able to explain this to somebody as easily as you can. This is, again, why it's very hard for developers to come with some of these tutorials. Because how do you explain to somebody something that you designed in 8 words or less?
Yeah, it's really, really hard. And, you can go beyond the 8 words, but, you need to stay as close to that as possible, kind of thing. But the one really acceptable way to do that is when you integrate it into your story seamlessly, kind of thing. Because they're paying, but this only works if your story is interesting. If your story is not interesting, then this is a complete failure right here. Like with the game you had last night, where they gave you 3 or 4 pages of uninteresting dialogue, and then here's the most hand-holdy thing we can do. And you don't want to hand-hold, and you don't want to, give 3 pages of, you don't want to give any pages of uninteresting dialogue, kind of thing. You want every bit of dialogue in your game to be interesting in some way. whether it's important to the gameplay, important to the story, plot, funny, scary, whatever it is, you want it to be impactful. You don't want any dead words in there, which is the reason why, like, when we look at those Twine games that, on
Keymailer.
On Keymailer, yeah. On Keymailer that advertise how many words they have. It's like, oh,
no.
I can only assume that you're going to spend 300, 400 words, 800 words, 1,000 words describing the room that you just posted a picture of above. It's like the picture is 800 words. Don't put the 800 words. Just have the image.
Yeah. And again, words are your enemy when it comes to building a tutorial. You want to keep things as easy to learn as possible. And this is, again, I think I've said this before, that why Let's Players and YouTubers have often been kind of like the best examples of these kinds of tutorial designs, because they basically will run through things in an order of importance. They'll be able to drill down, okay, I am doing this because I need to understand that. And a YouTuber explaining their thought process in 20 seconds is like 10,000 words of text for a tutorial.
Yeah. And this is a tangent, but it does apply, so I'm going to say it. Like, when you're talking about an RPG or any kind of game that has like a dialogue box where your story is playing out, kind of thing, you want a big enough font in there. You want only 2 or 3 sentences in there at most, kind of thing. So the same things apply when you go to tutorials, kind of thing. You want a large enough font, at least 32 pixels tall, if you can help it, kind of thing. You want all your text to be at least 32 pixels tall. Sadly, I was not able to help that, but like, I have it as big as I possibly can, and I'm still working on trying to figure out a way to make it bigger, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you want that large font size, and you want as few words as possible at one time on the screen. You want a sentence, maybe 2. And then you're done. And then you press a button, you go to the next screen, and a new dialog box pops up, or a new tutorial box pops up. But you don't want to put too many tutorial boxes. You want maybe 3 before they play. And the best way to have them learn it is to have them actually do it. Learn by doing, kind of thing. Like, if you're teaching them by these tutorial boxes, like you're putting up text boxes and everything, make sure they actually carry out those actions, but don't handhold them in it, but also don't let them, not figure it out either.
Yeah, that's another big point. Don't let the box go away until the player has completed that action.
Yeah, if it says press X to attack, press X to attack, and if they don't do it, then don't make that disappear. If it says move over towards the enemy, like in a tactical RPG, if they tell you, move to this glowing spot, I mean, I think that's a little bit too handholdy, kind of thing. I would say, I would rather than put a exact place where you have to move, it would be move to attack this enemy, and I would put a highlight on the enemy and let you pick your space around there.
I think there's an art to letting the player fail in a tutorial and presenting it as to why. And what I mean by that is that in Mortal Kombat 11, what they do in the tutorial is that, let's say they want you to do a combo. They'll put on the screen, okay, I want you to press square, triangle, circle. If the player presses square, triangle, circle, but they don't do it in the proper button pressing or the proper timing, the game will put on the screen, you hit these buttons, but the transition from square to triangle didn't occur fast enough. Press those buttons a little bit quicker, or they'll show you the timing that you did and what you should have done. And I think that's huge. Like we've said many times over, learning by failure is very powerful because it shows.
You know what they should have done?
Hmm?
Is like every time you fell that, the enemy does an attack on you and your HP goes down.
Well, I think that would have probably stressed out new players a little too much, but it's a good idea of showing, like, this is one of the reasons why I play or why I'm good at so many action games, is that I fail a lot when you're trying to learn an action game. And you're able to put one to one together. Okay, I did this, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Maybe the enemy countered my attack. Maybe the enemy's combo string was longer than I thought. Okay, adjust, reapply. And by letting the player fail in that regard, it allows them again to process, okay, I did this and it didn't work. Maybe if I do it like this way, it worked. Okay, it worked. So I've now compartmentalized that I need to do it this in order to make this work. Now I can move on to the next lesson. Because another thing you do not want to do is let the player move through a tutorial if they're failing at it or it's not working right.
Yeah, and this goes back to our last topic of playtesting. You absolutely have to playtest your tutorial, specifically with new players that have never touched your game, and you want to watch them. These especially, as close as possible, so that you can be sure that they're absolutely understanding everything. And if you see that they're having problems with something, find out what it is and address it.
Yes. And like we said, we're going to, let me check our time today. We're going to probably wrap this in the next 10 to 15 minutes, just in terms of lengthwise for our show here. But this is a topic that we could probably spend, while we're all stuck inside, we could dedicate an hour or two a week to talking about tutorial design, and we won't run out of things to say. It's that complex of a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's definitely a lot to it, and the thing is even among professional developers, there's no blueprinted way. This is the right way to do a tutorial.
Yes, it is not only genre dependent, but it's also gameplay loop dependent as well.
Mm-hmm. It is independent to your own game.
Yeah,
and your own UI.
And while you can take tips and information from similar games in your genre, again, if your game is unique in any aspect of the genre, you must have a tutorial for that. And sometimes you have to make the tutorial as, blatant and explicit as possible. Because if there is a system that is unique to your game, nobody is going to have that information from the outside.
Yeah, and you may even have to lock stuff behind walls in order to get the player to experience it and learn it right. Because Fortnite had to do this. They had this little dot that if you hit the dot, you would do more damage and bust things a lot quicker. But they went through playtesting after playtesting after playtesting, and nobody would do it and everything. And then they were like, why are you not hitting one spot that's going? Oh, I thought that was just saying that I was targeting this one object kind of thing, and that was where it's targeting at, kind of thing. Because it was confusing, and they went through many iterations, and still just problem after problem after problem. They could never get it. But then they finally, what they did was they locked it behind a skill, and you had to unlock that skill. And when you hovered over the skill, it's like, oh, this is weak points. If you hit this point, it'll destroy objects a lot quicker.
They had to explain a unique mechanic because nobody knew that was a system in Fortnite. And
exactly.
Yet, I see this in a lot of platformers that feature unique movement tech. Like a dash teleport or the stuff we saw in Tesla Grad. So what they do is when they introduce that mechanic, they will trap the player in the room until they make use of that mechanic to get themselves out of it. And again, like, that may take 5 seconds of the player's time, but it probably took them a lot of iteration to drill that down to a 5-second tutorial that the player doesn't even know that it's a tutorial. They just think, oh, I got this power, I need to get out of the room using it. That is an example of an organic tutorial.
Yeah, and 5 seconds now is way better than, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour down the road kind of. They get stuck, and they're stuck there for hours and hours until they just quit the game.
Yep. And because they didn't know that that mechanic had that purpose. And again, there's that line. What was that?
Learn by doing is often the best way.
And then probably the second best way would be learning by failure.
And
what
like you're doing by failing.
Yeah. If there's a unique element to how something works, you need to explain that to the player. Like, let's say, for instance, that I get the power to make a fireball. Let's say I jump shooting a fireball. And let's say at some point in the game, I have to shoot a fireball into a machine that will create, let's say, a platform. If that is never referenced at all in your game, and then you just throw that at the player during, let's say, a death section, they're not going to know what to do. They're going to do everything like they've done prior, and they're going to fail. And if they did not know that that mechanic existed in your game, they're never going to figure that out without looking it up.
Yeah, and let's take a small tangent to look at now the word's slipping for me, an analogy. Okay, we all know that fixing tea is pretty easy. It's one of the easiest things you could do, kind of thing. Now then, if somebody, let's just say that you've never made tea before. So if your mother or father or whoever takes you into a room and is like, okay, take that pot there, pour some water into it, you do it. Now put it on the pan, you do that, and then you turn up the heat, wait till it boils, and then pour that into a jug, and then pour your tea bag in there. Make sure that little tag's hanging up to the end, and you do that, and then wait X minutes, and then you pull it out, and then you depending on if you do iced tea or warm tea kind of thing or whatever kind of tea you're doing, to what you do with it next. You understand that really easily. But like if I were just to give you a list that says boil water, don't do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that kind of thing, like all in one area that's all bunched up together, it becomes far, far harder to understand and actually learn that.
And I think another to add to that, another reason why that's harder is because that list is generalized. It is not being catered to me. Somebody who knows a lot of those steps already is going to move through that list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 immediately. If I've never done anything like that before, I'm like, okay, I may spend longer on point 1. I may, not
what kind of pot do I need?
Exactly. If you're standing there and telling somebody, you are essentially adjusting your instructions to that person. If you say to somebody, go grab a pot, they'll be like, okay, grab a teapot, pull it down, next. You say it to somebody else, and we're like, what pot do I grab? Does the color matter? Does size matter? And then you have to explain that to that person. And it goes back to the Mortal Kombat example. That if they just said, press square, circle, triangle, do a combo, and then they move on to the next lesson, somebody may do that perfectly. Somebody may fail and not understand why. If there's not additional information, they're going to start to get confused. And this is the big problem with a lot of tutorials. If I am confused at step 2 of your tutorial, and you ask me to move on to step 3, I'm going to fail. I'm going to be frustrated because I didn't learn lesson 2. And if I can't learn lesson 2, what makes you think I'm going to learn lesson 3 or lesson 4? And then I'm going to start playing your game for real, get really frustrated because I'm failing because I don't understand what's going on, and then I'm never going to play your game again.
Yeah, a bad tutorial can literally kill your game.
Yes, it again, I've said this. How many times have I said that? If your game annoys me in the first 10 minutes of playing, it's done. I'm not playing your game anymore. I don't care how much time you spend with it. I don't care how great your game is 30 hours in. If I'm annoyed 10 minutes in your game, it's dead.
Well, I meant for you, it's more like you're going to play a lot more with your masochism.
Yeah, the masochism can only hold to so long, and then the cord gets cut.
Yeah.
And again, like, what we're describing, when we talk about organic tutorials and making these easy to learn, this doesn't happen within 2 minutes of designing your game. This can take hours onto months of playtesting, refinement, and iterating to get to that point. So again, with Plants vs. Zombies and with Mortal Kombat 11, those tutorials weren't done in one day. I can guarantee you, I can bet any amount of money and say that it did not take them 24 hours to make those tutorials. It took them a lot longer than that.
Yeah. With the tutorial, though, when you're making your game, the tutorial is one of the last things you put in there, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of like the real big downfall of early access games.
Yes.
Because the reason why the tutorial is one of the last things you do is because you have to give a tutorial for every game feature, and like every game feature you add is going to change what you need to put in the tutorial.
Yep.
And if you're still in early access, still like in early alphas kind of thing, you're changing and adding different gameplay loops, meaning that you have to redo your tutorial. And if you have to redo your tutorial every single alpha, you end up just wasting all the time that you have in there. You spend, like let's just say you put out a version every month kind of thing. Well, out of that month, probably a week of that is going to be you working on your tutorial. So and you'll have 3 weeks of development, and then you're cutting your development time by 1/4, 25%. You're just taking the 25% of your time and just chunking it out the window, kind of thing.
And like we've said, like it leads to that 2 steps forward, 3 steps back approach, and you don't want that to happen. Like we said, as Shark just said, the tutorial is often saved for last because you can't design an adequate tutorial if you're still building the systems that you're going to eventually have to teach the player how to use. And this is again,
but that doesn't mean all hope is lost.
Yeah,
because like you can put something in there that will help them learn. That'll be very low effort and very easy to implement, kind of thing.
Yeah, like this is why your core gameplay loop is so important. Because the second that is finalized, you can at least design a basic tutorial around that. Because if you can't explain your core gameplay loop to the player, then you failed, essentially.
Well, I mean, what we plan on doing with Project Triad, during early access and everything, is just, here's an image of the card, both in square form and in rectangle form. These are what the numbers are, and here's what they do. This is greater than, this is less than, this is equal to, and math, and then they go in each, they go in the direction that they're pointing in, and then this is the deck faction you have. This is just pointing out different aspects of the card, and it's just an image of the card with little lines drawn after it, with a little basically kind of table of contents kind of thing. Like that is something you can do early kind of thing, like table of contents kind of things, like something really basic like that. That is essentially like a really, really poor man's tutorial that you should never have in a final game, but it would be better than nothing.
You need something for your game in early access. That's the big point. Like when you're building your game up, when you're trying to get people to play it, you need at least something. Like, again, something is better than nothing. But that, and I think this is another big issue, the very first tutorial that you design for your game should never be the tutorial that's in the finished version. Never, ever. Because in that span of time that you develop your game, you should have done iteration. You should have done playtesting to figure out what people are having trouble with. And you need to adjust your tutorials accordingly. If you remember, when we played Besieged on stream, that tutorial was the same exact tutorial that they had 3 years ago. And it was as confusing then as it was right now.
And really, the key to making a good tutorial is not actually making a good tutorial. Shocking. The key to making a good tutorial is making your game intuitive enough that to certain players, you don't need a tutorial at all. And then once you get to that point, then you can build a tutorial that is, off of that streamlined UI, streamline everything kind of thing. And now you're able to take that streamlinedness and teach it really, really easily.
Yep. Again, like, if you can make it as organic as possible, and you don't need, like, I think that's another big point. Like, when you pop up tooltips, when you have to explain something, that is usually considered kind of like, almost like, I don't want to say this negatively. It's kind of like the last solution to your tutorial. Like, you don't want to, pop up on screen, you must do this, this, and this. Ultimately, you want the player to figure it out. But if they can't, or if something is too abstract, that there's no way they're going to learn this other than you telling them, then yes, you need a tooltip for it. And like I said, when I say last-ditch solution, that's not a negative here. That's just, again, some things you have to explain to somebody.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier about, my level scaling system. I had to pull out that last case scenario because there was no way that I could explain that to the players without strictly telling them what was actually going on. But I told it through a story and made it, somewhat comedic kind of thing.
And I think, let me check our time. Yeah, I do have to get going, and we're just at the 2-hour mark. And like I said, this is a topic that there are so many more facets to talk about. We didn't even talk about, oh no, I just had in my mind, I forgot it. We said organic tutorials. I completely lost that train of thought there. But there are other types of tutorials that can go into a game. I just remembered. Dynamic tutorials, such as in Little Nightmare. That a tutorial will only pop up if the player is stuck on a specific section. And that kind of dynamicism, that's, again, another topic that I don't have the time to talk about tonight. So, anything...
for those, you probably want those in addition to your normal...
So, anything like last minute that you want to bring up, Shark?
Well, we talked about good tutorials and whatnot, and how to actually teach a player. But the one thing that we really didn't talk much on is how to make it good for the player. Like not just good as in learning, but good as enjoyable, as in it doesn't drown out the experience. It's not like, oh, I gotta go through the tutorial kind of thing. Like nobody wants to go through a tutorial. Everybody does not like tutorials. Pretty much. And like, oh, it's something I got to put up with. But, you streamline and you hide that tutorial to where people don't notice it. That is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion, kind of thing. Like,
again, that's why the gold standard is something like the Plants vs. Zombies tutorial. That if you can drill it down to the point that it is so easy to learn that some people may not even realize it's a tutorial, and it gets them into the game and they start growing from there, you're golden. And This is my final point that I want to mention, and this will be it for our stream for today. Like we said, you must have something. And there are some developers and some consumers who think that I just want the player to learn everything organically. I don't want any tutorials, I don't want any guidance. That is wrong. There has to be a step one. You need to give the player a footing in order to learn how your game works. This was the major failure of Ancestors. That the game throws everything at the player without any foundational elements. And again, like, the joy or the best point is that the player learns this stuff organically through playing the game. That they think that they're learning it, even though you're kind of guiding them. But if there is no guidance whatsoever, they're not going to be able to realize what's happening. Because if your game is 100% unique and they have no previous knowledge to fall back on, they're not going to figure this stuff out. And they're going to get frustrated, and then they're going to stop playing.
Yeah, no tutorial and learning organically, some people are learning it and other people quitting it, is not the same of having a tutorial and have it perfectly hidden so that people don't even realize there's a tutorial. And then you play through it and everybody gets it, kind of thing. Like there's a big difference there. Both don't look like they have a tutorial. One doesn't actually have one. One that does have it, people learn, experience, and play the game and enjoy it. The other one, a small fraction of people eventually figure it out, and the other people fell horribly and they give up and quit.
Yep. And when they quit, they are never going to come back.
And if they can, they're probably refunding your game.
Yep. And I think that is the point that we're going to end things on for this week. And like I said, we will most likely be coming back to this topic again and again in the future. But
so next week's topic is what's a bad tutorial, and the other topic is what's a really great tutorial. That's our two topics for next week.
There we go. All right, but we're going to end things for this week. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at GWBlaster and check out our Discord and Patreon link down below. We will be back Sundays at around 4 p.m. EDT for our regular streams. For you, Shark, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Nexus Games INC1. You can find my channel, and you can find me on Discord. You can especially find me on Discord, and all those links will be down in the description because they're just a bunch of random numbers and letters, sadly.
Yeah. All right, so that is going to do it. We'll be back later for our regular game streaming. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, have a great rest of your Sunday, and of course, stay safe.
See ya.